If you want a job done right, you should do it yourself. And coming up are some people who, as you'll see, definitely wish they had, seeing as their simple requests were carried out in the most literal and facepalm-worthy ways possible. From requests for extra toppings that spawned tsunamis of sauce, preposterous pickle piles, and gut-churning cheese explosions, to some Photoshop fixes gone hilariously awry. There'll be laughter, there'll be tears, but above all, there will be people who got served literally what they requested. Officially, there are just 7 wonders of the world, though if you ask me, I'd argue there's actually an 8th. That, of course, being the humble hamburger. From bun to patty and everything in between, this is a delicate balance of texture and flavor that could only be the work of divine intervention. However, what we're about to witness are some burgers that seemingly dragged their little buns up from the depths of hell. For starters, one hungry McDonald's customer requested a hamburger with, in her own words, meat only. Failing to comprehend that what she actually meant was a plain burger with no other fillings, they served up a sad, single, small piece of meat. Which, by the way, is probably what my dating profile should say if I were more honest with myself. Anyway, another customer experienced similar disappointment when they asked for, quote, light lettuce on the burger. Now, for anyone with half a brain cell, it's obvious this was intended to mean just a little bit of lettuce, though the server evidently interpreted it in the microscopic scale. On the flip side, when one guy asked for a burger with no bun, which I believe the kids today are calling a naked burger, he was essentially served it gift-wrapped in copious layers of lettuce as a means for him to still enjoy it handheld. Pretty genius, I have to say, but looking at this thing, are we thinking tasty or gross? Let me know down in the comments. But on the topic of extreme excesses of ingredients, imagine asking for just a little extra salt and pepper on your McDonald's burger and finding it to be utterly coated in the stuff. That wasn't very Ronald McDonald of them now, was it? Safe to say that if I'd been served this, I'd be feeling a bit salty too. Moving on though, and have you ever heard of a Flying Dutchman? Don't worry if you haven't, as it is actually a secret menu item at In-N-Out, that being 2 slices of cheese melted between 2 burger patties, no buns. However, when one guy asked for extra grilled onions on his Flying Dutchman, he received an eye-watering amount, and by the sounds of it, he wasn't necessarily mad about it either. Judging by the fact that this meaty, cheesy mess has got my mouth watering too, I don't think I could ever go vegan. Still, for anyone who is, there are burger substitutes available, like bean burgers. Though, approach with caution, as when one person requested a bean burger, they received a burger bun literally seeping with baked beans. I believe this is what's known as the Double British Special with Onion. Thanks, England, but I think I'll stick with your finest culinary export, the legendary pie sandwich. God save the king. Now, as someone who likes to think they know their way around a burger, I can tell you that the key to a good one is the ratio of burger to sauce. It can really make or break, as one McDonald's customer found out when she requested extra tartar sauce on her filet of fish. Hard to believe, but a soggy, sauce-spewing mess wasn't what she had in mind. Contrary to the restaurant's slogan, she was not loving it. Nor was this next person, who also fell victim to an unexpected splurge of extra tartar sauce. I guess at least it was thoughtful of the restaurant staff to give that fish a final chance to swim. And it seems it's not just Mickey D's tartar sauce that's had issues either, but their famous Big Mac sauce too. If these two terrors are anything to go by, you might want to think twice before asking for extra Big Mac sauce, lest you wind up peeling your burger from a puddle of gloop. Well, at least receiving something like this would help if you're on a diet, because I know I just lost my appetite. But our drive-through of fast food felonies is just beginning, as demonstrated by Twitter user Weast, who was understandably shocked when he tucked into his bacon cheeseburger from Burger King, only to find that it was excreting great lashed heaps of melted cheese. Now, don't get me wrong, I like cheese as much as the next person. However, as the old Latin saying goes, only the dose makes the poison. But it seems Burger King may have been up to even more mischief, or should I say, Miss Cheese, as just this year in its Thailand stores, Burger King unveiled what it calls the Real Cheeseburger. That is a burger bun solely accommodating 20 slices of stacked American cheese. Most of the time, the cheese doesn't even come out melted. If you didn't have turophobia before, that being the fear of cheese, then you probably do now. Ironically, though, there's not much real about the cheese on the Real Cheeseburger, given that American cheese singles usually only hover around the 50% mark for actual cheese contents. The other 50% is typically a mixture of milk protein concentrates, potato starch enzymes, and other filler chemicals and preservatives. Yum. Still, would you eat this cheesy overload? Well, I'm sure there are some cheese chompers out there that would love a nibble of this. Some prefer their burgers with no cheese at all, or so that's the idea. Yeah, when one guy requested no cheese on his burger, it seemed he needed to be more specific to explain that he didn't want cheese on top of his burger either. Evidently, the concept of no cheese was particularly difficult for this McDonald's worker to comprehend. Worse yet, this other burger wearing a cheese toupee was the result of someone requesting extra cheese on their burger, which, as you can see, the server took the word "on" a little too literally. And this wasn't the only instance, as someone else found their McDonald's burger garnished with the extra pickles on the burger that they'd ordered. Perhaps it was the same employee who put together this order when a customer asked for their cheese on the side of their burger. Keep trying, buddy. You'll get there. Maybe just try to be a little less literal next time, eh? Keeping things cheesy, one person was engulfed in a cream cheese tsunami after making the fatal error of asking for a little extra on his bagel. Somehow, I don't think this was what he had in mind. But could this be the beginning of a nationwide epidemic? After all, another innocent bagel enjoyer's plea for more cream cheese had similarly catastrophic results. Although, in New York, this would probably be considered too light on the cream cheese. But if that stomach-curdling amount of cream cheese didn't get your lactose intolerance all fired up, then just sink your teeth into this next clip. Yep, having asked for some extra cheese on his sandwich at Chick-fil-A, one guy was startled to say the least to discover this huge honker of a burger. Despite being more or less inedible, I must say the value for money is second to none. Speaking of which, feast your eyes on what one unsuspecting diner was served at U.S. restaurant chain Skyline Chili. This, apparently, is standard and not extra, in which case I dread to think what extra might look like. It really is shocking how the US has an obesity issue, right? I mean, where else in the world could you get a foot-long hot dog smothered in a flood of melted cheese? America, everybody. Still, things could always be worse. Like, for example, when one person asked for a side of cheese for their nachos at Taco Bell, that's exactly what they got. Nothing quite like dipping a dry nacho into some delicious dry cheese. Let this be a lesson that, just to be safe, you should probably specify that you want a side of nacho cheese for your nachos. Más queso, por favor. But if there's one food where cheese really takes center stage, it has to be pizza. Unfortunately, though, all that stringy goodness can occasionally turn to sheer, unadulterated horror. Just take a look at what happened when someone decided to order a Domino's double cheese pizza with an additional 8 servings of double cheese. Or, as I like to call it, cheese soup with a side of dough for dippin'. Nevertheless, they asked, and the pizza place listened. And while cheese is a great source of protein and calcium, too much can lead to increased blood pressure and, obviously, weight gain. But if that last pizza didn't tip the scales from obese to morbidly obese, then I'm sure this one with extra cheese and Alfredo sauce certainly will. Safe to assume that when the person requested this, they didn't expect pizza casserole, but here we are. Understandably, streams of cheese might not be exactly your taste. So how about some pepperoni? Estimated to be the most popular pizza topping in the US, there's no denying that we Yanks love the sumptuous and smoky flavor of pepperoni. However, this double pepperoni that someone was served at their local pizza joint might be a tad too much. I mean, I'd call that at least quadruple. Similarly, one guy was certainly a happy customer when he ordered double pepperoni and was delivered this pepperoni-packed pizza. Nothing like a pizza you can feel clogging up your arteries in real time. But as they say, ask and you shall receive. Which is definitely what also happened when one person asked for, in their own words, a disgusting amount of pepperonis. And while I would be lying if I said it doesn't look tasty, tackling this whole pizza would be a one-way trip to Heartburn City. However, it would simply be impossible to talk about disgusting pizzas without bringing up the dreaded H word. Yep, Hawaiian. Now, I'll leave it up to you in the comments to battle it out over whether pineapple has a place on pizza, but as a shock to many in the anti-pineapple camp, one sadistic individual asked for extra pineapple. And, well, it looks like they got their 5 a day. If you listen carefully, you can hear the cries of Italians far and wide. Arguably even worse, though, one person ordered so much mushroom on their pizza that the staff at the pizza place thought it was a practical joke. I wish it was. You can see by the avalanche of mushrooms, there ain't mushroom for anything else. With puns like this, you know I'm a fun guy.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, I'll stop now. But of all the catastrophic pizzas, this reservoir of onion and sauce reigns supreme. Look at the state of it. Yep, one person's craving for a little extra sauce was blown to disastrous proportions as they were served up this oozing mess. There's a Judas among us, and it seems he works in a pizza joint. If you've ever worked in retail or the food service industry, then you'll be familiar with the rather infuriating phrase, "The customer is always right." Ah, yes, it's the overused justification for the terrible public behavior of Karens everywhere. Still, some Domino's employees were left double-taking a customer's request for a pickle pizza, as in simply put a pizza base with pickles on top. No sauce, no cheese, purely pickle. Granted, I'm not exactly a fan of pickles. However, anyone that is ordering the aforementioned pickle pizza or going into Subway and asking for, quote, a disgusting amount of pickles needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror. I mean, I can accept that we all have our own unique Subway orders, but this feels illegal. However, it seems pickle-plagued subs aren't all that uncommon, as 2 more diabolical picklers attempted to quench their insatiable appetite for all things sweet, salty, and sour by having heaps of pickles jam-packed into their sandwiches. To a similar effect, take a look at what happened when one guy asked his wife to order him extra black olives on his sub. Seizing the opportunity for a prank, his wife ordered him this sub, which, if squeezed, could very likely produce an entire bottle's worth of olive oil. More proof that you should be careful what you ask for, namely, someone's hand in marriage. But back to the pickles now, and it seems the pickle pilgrims have also set their sights on burgers. Yep, back in 2016, Japanese news outlet Sora News 24, who have a track record of ordering insane things from Burger King, such as this cheese beast that featured in the previous episode of this series, decided to see what would happen if they ordered $80 worth of extra pickles on a Burger King Whopper. And what a Whopper it was, as the Burger King staff handed over this 3.7-pound pickle pillar, which, to put that colossal mound into perspective, there are Chihuahuas that weigh less. And while it is, of course, a wretched creation, you have to admire the noble efforts of the Burger King staff. I don't know how they did it, but that thing seems to be defying gravity. And sorry to say, but there are even more pickles afoot. When another pickle tickler requested extra at Wendy's, he received enough to inflict a serious chemical burn upon any bold enough to take a bite. Jeez, that thing's got more pickles on it than the tongue of Krusty Krab's worst critic. Okay, so by this point in the video, it's pretty clear that asking for extra oftentimes is risky business. Sometimes less is more, and one person certainly learned that lesson when their request for extra sour cream with their Chipotle veggie bowl was taken to an extreme level. I mean, I'd be feeling a little sour too if this was served to me. The worst part is, the food delivery app the food was ordered through actually refused to refund this incredible mess. I never thought I'd say it, but I think this calls for a Karen. Tell him how the customer is always right, K-Dog. But if we're talking about excessive servings, then you ain't seen nothing yet until you check out this rice bowl, if you can even call it that. This really is more like a rice mountain. Yep, this colossal gravity-defying rice Goliath would be enough to feed a Catholic family. On the other hand, there are occasionally times when more can actually work out in your favor. Case in point, when one lucky customer requested extra chicken on his yakisoba, the restaurant definitely didn't disappoint. They gave him the whole dang farm. Anyone else suddenly have a craving for Asian food? Well, you're just in luck, as I have the perfect restaurant for you. Yep, this Thai restaurant in New York is cunningly called Thai Food Near Me, meaning that when people type that very same phrase into Google, this very literal restaurant is one of the top results. Talk about search engine optimization. Now, we interrupt this broadcast with a very important message. Yes, according to government officials, it is now a legal obligation to be subscribed to BMAs, and it is your civic duty to like and comment on all BMAs videos. In return, you can expect regular fun and factual content, and your family will be perfectly safe. I promise. Now, back to our regular programming. Okay, so now that's main course done with. Have you got any room for dessert? Who am I kidding? Of course you have. Now, who doesn't love a hot, cozy cup of cocoa topped with heaps of marshmallows? That said, when one marshmallow muncher dared to ask for some extra on his hot chocolate, he was slapped in the face with this Big Bertha. Yeah, because who doesn't want a warm, soggy marshmallow hitting them in the face every time they have a drink? It kind of looks like me as a child next to all my classmates. Hey, I was big boned. Anyway, moving on to another ultra sweet treat. When one Oreo enthusiast asked her pal to make a homemade Oreo with, quote, a ridiculous amount of filling. She certainly understood the assignment. As far as being appetizing goes, well, I guess that's a matter of opinion. But if making your pal a giant Oreo isn't a mark of true friendship, then I don't know what is. As if that wasn't enough frosting to spike your blood sugar levels, just check out what happened when one guy asked for extra frosting on his cinnamon bun at Hardee's. I know I should pretend to be disgusted, but who am I kidding? I'd be slurping that frosting with a straw like no tomorrow. Another person made the same error of requesting extra frosting and consequently got their buns served floating. Is it wrong that I still think they look delicious? But if you're after a treat that'll get your blood pressure popping, then get a load of this next one. When one customer ordered extra salty pretzel sticks, these are what he received. Now, you might assume this to be a joke, a mere prank even. However, the guy assured the staff that these were just to his liking, though I'm not sure if a sodium-induced early grave would be quite as appetizing to him. After all, excessive salt intake can significantly increase blood pressure, and therefore heighten the likelihood of heart attacks and strokes. It's one of life's major injustices, if you ask me. To the same effect, this next pretzel is so salty that it could essentially be marketed as a slug repellent. Safe to assume that this is more than the recommended 1 tablespoon of salt an adult should limit themselves to a day. My insides are shriveling up just looking at that thing. While it's safe to assume that for some of the culinary catastrophes we've seen so far, there is at least a small element of malicious compliance, i.e. intentionally exaggerated a customer's slightly difficult or unusual requests. We must also consider the possibility that some people are just a little bit, stupid. Case in point, at a Swenson's ice cream parlor, one customer asked for an ice cream with a cone. And while you would assume that to be a very straightforward request, this is what was served. Yep, a bowl of ice cream with a side of plain, dry cone. What? Did they think they wanted to wear the cone as a hat or something? Common sense evidently isn't quite as common as you'd assumed. But if you need further proof of that, then turn your attention to these hilariously disastrous cakes that take literalness, or literality if we're being fancy, to a whole new level. For instance, when ordering a graduation cake, one person requested sprinkles on it. The only problem being the baker evidently took their request very literally, as they wrote, "I want sprinkles" on the cake. A genuine mistake or deliberate? We may never know. Though ironically, there are still no sprinkles on that cake. One can only assume that customer satisfaction at this bakery isn't the best. But amazingly, this is hardly the first time something like this has happened. Take a look at this one, in which a customer asked the baker to write "welcome" on their cake. Nothing gives a warm welcome like a cake that haphazardly has "write welcome" on it written on it. And I must say, that shade of brown frosting probably wasn't the best creative decision either. In yet another case, someone wanted "congratulations" written on their cake 3 times. To which, despite being an incredibly simple instruction, the baker served up a cake that literally said "congratulations" 3 times on it. I mean, sure, triple congratulations to the baker, who is officially a triple ignoramus. Likewise here to this baker, who took a customer's very clear instructions and wrote "Best wishes, Suzanne," underneath that "We will miss you." And the worst part is that they even spelt "underneath" as "underneat." And is that a stray capital letter I see? Talk about facepalm. Let's just hope that the cake tasted better than it looked. Okay, so while most of the video has been about food, we're gonna switch gears here and look at the work of a legendary individual who we've featured on this channel a few times now. The one and only James Fridman. For anyone who doesn't know, the Honorable Mr. Fridman is a Photoshop whiz who hilariously misconstrues people's Photoshop requests on purpose. I mean, just take a look at what he cooked up when one girl asked him to make her head, quote, "less round." Yeah, it's certainly not looking round at all now, what with her pretty much having 4 right angles. A lesson learned that photoshopping your appearance or asking someone else to do it is never a good idea. Similarly, another girl had taken a cute selfie with her boyfriend. Only problem being, she felt the photo made her head look big in comparison to his. Requesting that James make her head look smaller than her boyfriend's, the last thing she expected was for him to inflate the size of her boyfriend's head like a balloon. All I can say is, if their children inherit their dad's head size, then good luck birthing them. With great photoshopping, however, comes great responsibility. If there's one thing James doesn't tolerate, it's vanity. For instance, this next guy got in touch with James asking him to Photoshop his face onto another guy's muscular, toned body. No doubt that what James whipped up is sure to get all the chicas. Hot stuff, right? And finally, the last of James's Photoshop shenanigans. Take a look at what he came up with when one guy asked him to edit a picture of him and his brother to them both wearing the same t-shirt. Nothing quite like brotherly love, is there? But for now, consider yourself warned about James and his photoshopping mischief. No one is safe. He's the literal king of literality, bringing you what you literally say to life. Like, literally. Now, when it comes to the world of work, there can sometimes be a dress code, which often can be unnecessarily strict. For example, TikToker Emily has pink hair. However, her job dress code doesn't allow unnatural hair colors. Now, most people would either comply with the rules and dye their hair a natural color, or simply move on to another job. But Emily, well, she came up with a hilariously ingenious idea. That was to wear comically bad wigs, all, of course, being natural colors. From Karen to curly and beyond, Emily has wigs in all ridiculous shapes and sizes. But hey, the rules say no unnatural colors. They never said anything about terrible wigs. And that, my friends, is exactly how you serve up an unreasonable request very literally, as requested. And that's an adios for me for now. Let me know down in the comments which literal serving had you laughing the most, and if you've ever experienced anything similar. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.